Before you open your mouth, the room already knows. Something in your posture, your stillness, your silence. You haven't said a word, but people feel something, or they don't. This is the brutal truth. The world does not respond to your words. It responds to your energy, your gravity, your being. Nietzsche knew this. He didn't teach charm. He taught force, not domination, but the kind of inner alignment so deep you don't need to convince anyone of anything. Because when you are truly yourself, unapologetic, undivided, unafraid, you become the one the world cannot ignore. There are people who walk into a room and own it, without trying, without speaking, without asking for attention. They are not loud. They are not flashy, they are present, and that presence is magnetic, not because they are perfect, but because they are whole. Why energy speaks louder than words you've been taught to impress, to speak well, dress well, market yourself. But presence isn't about presentation, it's about transmission. Your nervous system tells the truth before your mouth does. People feel your anxiety, your need for approval, your desperation to be liked, even when you smile. But when you are calm within, when you are not chasing, not performing, not proving, you become a signal, not noise. Nietzsche believed that your being radiates, and if it's aligned, it doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is, and that's enough. How the world responds to inner certainty, confidence is not loud. It's quiet, but unshakable. It's the way you walk, the way you sit in silence without fidgeting, the way you say no without explaining. Nietzsche called for inner mastery, the ability to stand in your truth without asking for permission, and people feel that. They lean in. They want to know you, not because you said the right thing, but because your energy says, I know who I am. I am not looking for permission to exist. That is irresistible when stillness becomes seduction. Stillness is not passive, it is powerful. When you are still, you create a vacuum, and others are drawn in. Why? Because in a world that's always rushing, always talking, always proving, stillness is rare. It suggests depth, command, mystery. Nietzsche understood this deeply. The most powerful figures in history, the ones who moved people, were not frantic. They were centered. They didn't chase. They waited, and the world came to them. Be still enough, strong enough, silent enough, and people will start leaning forward. The power of being fully in your own body. You cannot be present if you have abandoned your body. Most people live in their heads. They narrate, overthink, analyze. But Nietzsche believed in the body as truth, the place where instinct, presence, and power converge. When you are grounded in your body, your breath steady, your eyes clear, your movements intentional, you emit something the world doesn't have a word for, but it feels it. It is the difference between someone acting confident and someone who doesn't even need to act. Irresistibility begins when you stop pretending and start inhabiting yourself fully. You don't need to speak to be seen. You don't need to chase to be wanted. You don't need to impress to be unforgettable. You need only to become undeniably real. And that kind of presence is something no one can teach, but everyone can feel. The most irresistible people are not the most beautiful, not the richest, not the loudest. They are the ones who have suffered consciously, who have stared into their own darkness and stayed there long enough to come out forged, not broken. Nietzsche called this process self-overcoming, and it is the source of your aura. Not what you say, not what you own, but what you've survived and integrated. Charisma as the result of inner battles. One real charisma is not practiced in the mirror. It's earned in the dark. It's in the way you carry your scars, not as decoration, but as proof. When you've faced humiliation, heartbreak, failure, and refused to become bitter, when you've been abandoned, misunderstood, attacked, and still chose to stay open, you develop a kind of gravity. People feel it before you speak. They don't know your story, but they feel its weight, and that weight becomes your presence. Confidence born from confrontation, not comfort. Most people fake confidence. They puff up, they talk too much, they dominate space to hide their emptiness. But Nietzschean confidence comes from the opposite place. It is born in solitude, in silence, in the internal wars no one saw. You became confident not because the world clapped for you, but because you stopped needing the applause. You confronted your worst fears, and they didn't kill you. Now you walk into a room and don't need to prove anything. That absence of desperation, that's the power that makes people stare. The magnetic pull of someone who owns their scars. There is something irresistible about someone who doesn't flinch when their wounds are visible. They do not hide their pain, but they don't weaponize it either. They carry it like a sword, forged, not sharpened by bitterness. Nietzsche believed in embracing the ugly, the raw, the imperfect, not to wallow, but to transcend. When you meet someone who has integrated their shadow, who isn't pretending to be healed, but is deeply, fiercely real, you feel it, and it pulls you in, because they remind you what you could become if you stopped pretending. The Overman walks. He doesn't perform the Übermensch. Nietzsche's Overman is not a showman. He doesn't seek attention. He doesn't seduce with tricks or tactics. He simply walks with clarity, with alignment, with such uncompromising realness that the world cannot look away. He is not interested in being desired. He is interested in being true. And that paradox is what makes him irresistible. He does not chase. He does not prove. He simply is, and others follow. You cannot fake this kind of presence. You must earn it through fire, through solitude, through becoming. So if you want to be magnetic, don't ask, how do I impress them? Ask, what do I need to overcome within me to no longer need their approval? You think being irresistible means being likable, being clear, easy to digest, easy to define. But Nietzsche would say, no soul of depth is ever easy. You do not attract by explaining. You attract by embodying, fully, unapologetically, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Mystery is not a tactic. It is the natural result of being real in a shallow world. Why not explaining yourself is powerful. You were trained to explain, to justify your feeling, your silence, your boundaries, but the more you explain, the more you shrink. Because explanation is often a performance for approval. Nietzsche believed that truth speaks for itself. It doesn't need to be softened, translated, or approved. There is power in saying, this is who I am, take it or don't. When you stop explaining, people lean in, not because you're withholding, but because you're rooted. They sense, this person doesn't need me to get it, and that is irresistible. Depth as an antidote to attention-seeking. In a culture addicted to being seen, depth becomes rare, and therefore magnetic. Most people seek attention like air. They talk loud, post often, overshare. But Nietzsche knew, what is deep does not beg. Depth carries weight. It slows time. It makes others question themselves. You don't need to say much. Your presence becomes the message. They sense you've gone places inside yourself they're afraid to go, and they want to follow, not because of what you say, but because of who you've become. Mystery isn't manipulation, it's mastery. Some mistake mystery for manipulation, playing hard to get, hiding on purpose. But true mystery isn't a game. It is the side effect of someone living in alignment, uninterested in performing their soul for the masses. When you stop being accessible to everyone, when you no longer share just to be seen, you become magnetic, because people feel there is more beneath the surface, and that more isn't desperate to be known. Mystery isn't silence, it's sovereignty. Owning your strangeness makes you unforgettable. You try so hard to be normal, to be liked, to fit in. But your strangeness, your contradictions, your rawness, your spiritual fingerprints, that is what makes you unforgettable. Nietzsche urged us not to hide our oddness, but to amplify it, to refine it into something no one else could imitate. The moment you stop apologizing for who you are is the moment you start radiating something no one else can fake. They won't know why they're drawn to you. They'll just feel it, because strangeness, when owned, becomes style. And style is soul made visible. In a world screaming for attention, become the one who says nothing, but says everything through how you live, breathe, and are. The world teaches you to seek love, attention, validation, to hustle for worth, to market your soul. But every time you chase, you lose gravity, and what is not grounded can never become magnetic. Nietzsche offers another path. Not indifference, but sovereignty. Not closing your heart, but no longer offering it as currency. This is the secret. Those who no longer beg for attention begin to attract everything. Why neediness? Repels and sovereignty. Attracts neediness is loud. It leaks from your eyes, your words, your silences. It says, please validate me. Please complete me. Please choose me. But Nietzsche knew, the moment you need something from the world, you become its servant. Need repels, because it signals lack, and lack cannot attract abundance. Sovereignty, on the other hand, is quiet, rooted. It does not demand to be chosen. It chooses itself. And the moment you become whole within, the world starts to mirror that wholeness back. Being the source, not the seeker. Most people live like beggars, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. But Nietzsche invites you to become the source. Stop asking for love, become it. Stop needing presence, embody it. Stop seeking validation, radiate self-certainty. When you are the source, you don't move toward the world moves toward you. You don't need to convince anyone to stay. You become the place where staying feels like truth. This is divine magnetism. To be full and let others come to your overflow, not your hunger. Loving without chasing, you can love deeply and still be free. Most think love means pursuit, attachment, possession. But Nietzsche knew love becomes most powerful when it is not clingy, but clear. You love not because you are empty, but because you are already full. And love becomes your expression, not your addiction. When you stop chasing, you become a sanctuary, not a storm. You love without grabbing. You stay without begging. You let go without collapsing. And in that steadiness, others feel something rare. I am free here, and I want to stay. Irresistibility comes from not needing to be noticed. Ask yourself, why do you want to be seen? Because you feel invisible, inadequate, because you fear that without the spotlight you disappear. But what if the most irresistible energy is the one that doesn't care whether it's noticed, that walks into a room, not to take space, but to fill its own skin, that doesn't adjust its rhythm for attention, but moves with its own internal beat? Nietzsche would say, you do not become magnetic by being seen. You become magnetic by being whole. The flame doesn't ask the moth to come, it just burns. So burn. Burn without apology. Burn without announcement. Burn until the world cannot look away. Not because you chase them, but because you became the place they didn't know they were seeking. You were taught to chase, to pursue love, to seek approval, to orbit around the ones who shine. But Nietzsche's path reverses the order. Stop chasing, stop orbiting, stop folding yourself into versions they'll find acceptable. Instead, become the flame, the one who doesn't beg to be seen because they burn too brightly to be ignored, the one who does not move to please, but moves in alignment with something deeper than attention, truth, power, becoming. Stop trying to be liked, become unforgettable. You try to be liked, to be safe, agreeable, nice. But likability is a cheap currency. It gets you approval, not reverence. Nietzsche would ask, do you want to be liked or remembered? Stop softening your edges to fit the world's mold. Edges cut, edges define, edges attract. You were not born to be polite. You were born to resonate, and resonance does not come from imitation. It comes from originality paid for in solitude. Speak with your being. Not your mouth words can lie, but being cannot. You don't need cleverness. You don't need tricks. You need alignment. When your body, your tone, your posture, your silence all say the same thing, I am not waiting for permission to exist, you become magnetic. People don't know why they're drawn to you. They just feel the rarest thing of all. Someone who is not seeking anything and therefore contains everything. This is how the Übermensch speaks, through presence, not persuasion. Lead with gravity, not desperation. Desperation is noise. Gravity is silence. One pushes, one pulls, Nietzsche knew. Power does not rush, it rests. It is rooted, still, certain. The ones who lead do not need to convince. They are not running after affection. They are so in tune with their own rhythm that others feel safer just by being near them. Lead like this, not with urgency, but with undeniable gravity. Live in alignment and they will feel it. Call to action. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be prettier. You don't need to be anything more than you already are. But you do need to become aligned, because when your actions match your values, when your boundaries match your truth, when your presence matches your purpose, you emit something no one can manufacture: realness. And realness is magnetic, so stop asking, how do I attract them? Start asking, what do I need to burn away inside me so I no longer need to ask? Call to action. Watch again. Let this truth sink beneath your skin. Then walk into your next room as if you belong, not because they said so, but because you've stopped waiting for permission to take up space. You are the flame. Let the moths come.